Jessica Jones returned for its third and final season this past weekend, and we're here to see how it all ends. This is the second part of the recap, so if you missed anything, be sure and watch part 1 first. Let's go ahead and go over the rest of the season, starting with episode 7. Like and subscribe for daily content. The second half of the season begins with Trish and Jessica waiting outside the police precinct where they see that Jerry is defending Salinger. They can't figure out why she's doing this other than the publicity. Salinger publicly calls out Jessica and says she assaulted him, and then says there's more than just Jessica, that another woman has helped her. Jessica goes to Jerry's office and demands to know why she's defending Salinger. Jessica tells her that she's in danger being around him and that he just might kill her. Trish and Jessica head to Salinger's hometown to investigate his brother's death. Jessica has a hunch that Salinger may have killed him, and being his first murder, he may have made a mistake that she can use to pin him for the other killings. The local police, though, won't help Jessica, so Trish creates a disturbance, and the cops leave the office to go help Trish, and Jessica sneaks the files she needs. While there, Jessica uncovers the body of a missing boy who was friends with Salinger as a teenager. This may be the evidence they need. When back in New York, Trish arranges for a photographer to see her and lets him take pictures. The NYPD are putting pressure on its officers to find out who the masked vigilante is that was all over the newspapers. They're so focused on this that they don't have time to work with the body that Jessica found. Salinger sends Jessica a video claiming that he'll end someone's life by the end of the day, and then the video disappears. Jessica gets Trish's mother to set up a live interview to draw out Salinger's attention. After trying to figure out Salinger's target all day, Jessica and Trish come up with nothing, or so they think. Trish goes home to her mother's house and finds her murdered. She wants revenge and goes to Salinger's home and attacks him. Jessica finds her right as Trish is about to kill him. Jessica manages to get Trish away from Salinger before she can kill him, although he's very injured. The police are on their way and Jessica needs to get her out of there, so she punches Trish to knock her out. Jessica tries to clean Trish up as she grieves. They hide out in a motel somewhere while they make some decisions about what to do now. The detective calls Jessica and tells her that they have enough evidence on Salinger, but they need to bring Trish in. He tells Jessica to turn on the news, and they find Jerry at a press conference offering an award for anyone who can correctly identify the masked vigilante, aka Trish. At the hospital, Jessica disguises herself as a nurse and confronts Salinger. He tells Jessica that he will release a photo of Trish as the vigilante if she will get rid of the evidence that links him to the murder of his childhood friend. Jessica enlists a dirty cop to get her access into the crime lab with the help of Eric. She causes a sewage leak that will cause the building to clear out so that she can get rid of the evidence that would put Salinger away for good. The next morning, Trish lashes out at Eric for his part in bringing Salinger into their lives. Jessica tells Trish that she was forced to get rid of the evidence against Salinger in order to protect her. Malcolm goes to Jerry and quits working for her, but she blackmails him into keeping quiet using his girlfriend, who also works for Jerry. While watching footage from a break-in, Jerry gets a glimpse at Trish's face in a reflection and realizes she is the masked vigilante. The police arrive at Jessica's apartment with a search warrant and want to question her in the murder of the dirty cop who had given her access to the crime lab. She's confused, and the officers tell her that he's dead and that they saw her in the footage from his badge cam. The police don't find what they need and leave, and the detectives follow Jessica and Trish to the funeral home where they're making arrangements for Trish's mother. Jessica has to explain to Trish why they are following her and about the cop's death. Eric shows up at Jessica's and she asks him about his involvement in the cop's death. He tells her that he had nothing to do with this, but Jessica is still skeptical. At Trish's mother's funeral, Jessica starts to suspect that Trish may have had something to do with the murder of the dirty cop. She finds out that the cops have an arrest warrant for her and she ducks out of the funeral. Later, as she tracks Trish, the cops surround her and take her in. It turns out that Trish has been tracking down Eric's marks and killing them, apparently starting with the dirty cop. Eric walks into a trailer to find Trish beating a man. We flash back to the night Trish's mother died. Trish gets off the phone with Jessica and takes another look at her mother and then heads to Salinger's apartment. She takes out some cops on her way in, and Salinger is ready for her and attacks. Trish reveals her face to him and continues to beat him down as Jessica runs in and stops the fight. At the motel, after Jessica leaves, Trish beats up the noisy neighbor who is beating someone. Trish goes to the hospital where Salinger is and he lets her in. He tells Trish that he left a message in a very obvious hiding spot. Trish leaves and heads to her mother's apartment. She goes through photo albums until she finds that one that Salinger took of her mother as he was torturing her. She goes to Eric's apartment and tells him that she wants to go after the men he's been blackmailing. He tells her about the dirty cop, and she tells him to give her his files and she'll get the guy to talk. Trish tells Eric that she won't involve Jessica and it's only something that she can do. Eric arranges a meeting with the dirty cop and Trish hides in waiting. She confronts him and ends up accidentally killing him. Eric tells Trish that the pain in his head is suddenly gone, like it's getting better now that the cop is dead. The next day, Trish returns to Eric's apartment and tells him that the cops think Jessica killed the dirty cop. She tells him that Jessica can't go down for this, and Eric tells Trish that they need to give Jessica an alibi by roughing up another bad person when there's no chance she could have done it. Eric and Trish stake out their new target, and Trish tries to convince Eric to use his power to do good. She tells him he can't just walk away now. As Trish is getting ready for her mother's funeral, Jerry shows up at her apartment. She tells Trish that she knows who she is and what she's done, and she shows her the proof she found. She makes a deal with Trish to not reveal her identity to the police in exchange for her using her powers to scare someone off. Eric calls the cops as Trish is being followed by Jessica, which leads to them arresting her. Trish heads to the construction site and picks a fight with the guy Eric's been blackmailing. She beats him into confessing his crimes as Eric waits outside. He enters the office just as Trish beats the man to death. She didn't set out to kill him, but she took it too far once her emotions took over. Eric tells Trish that she lost control and that he's done with this. Trish tells him that she's got this and leaves to go find her next victim. The police let Jessica go because they found another murder victim and can link it to the murder of the dirty cop. She returns home to find Eric drunk in her bathtub. She confronts him about Trish and the murders, and he owns up to his part in it. He tells Jessica that he thinks Trish can be saved, but only if she doesn't kill Salinger. If she does this, she goes too far and she can't be redeemed. Trish goes after Salinger as he's trying to leave the hospital, and Jessica arrives just in time. She tosses Trish across the room and gets Salinger into an elevator. Trish catches up with them and Jessica tries to keep her from killing him. They get to the roof and Jessica throws Trish off and onto the roof of the neighboring building. The next morning, Jerry arrives at work and finds Jessica and Salinger waiting for her. Jessica wants Jerry to put Salinger up somewhere out of harm's way. She refuses and Salinger leaves. Jerry tells Jessica that she knows about who Trish is and asks if she should be worried. Jessica plays bodyguard to Salinger at his apartment as Trish waits across the street for her chance to strike. As she watches through binoculars, Malcolm and Eric sneak up behind her and take her out with a taser. She wakes up the next morning at her loft, her leg chained to the pole. Malcolm comes into the room and Trish tries to defend her actions. Jessica realizes someone spiked her drink when she starts to pass out, as she sees Salinger come through the door and then she blacks out. She comes to later and Salinger has her tied down to her chair and explains that he put a tranquilizer in her drink. He takes photos of her as he questions her on why she wants to be a hero, and she tells him she never wanted it, but he tells her that she'll never actually be a hero. Salinger tries to get inside Jessica's head, but she gets to him and he confesses to murdering Trish's mother and the others. Jessica laughs this off as she alerts Salinger to the fact that she's recorded this all on a hidden camera. She breaks free from the chair and she takes him down. The police arrive at Jessica's apartment and take Salinger in along with the video of his confession. Jessica goes to Trish and tells her that Salinger is in jail for good and that all of this is over. She lets Trish go and they hug. Salinger calls Jessica from jail and tells her that it's not over for Trish and that at some point she's going to have to make a sacrifice, and he's eager to find out what she'll do. Trish shows up at the jail and takes out several cops in her attempts to get Salinger. She drags him into an elevator and begins to beat him, finally smashing his head in with her foot. Jessica arrives at the courthouse just as people discover his body. She rushes up the stairs and sees Jerry and then looks inside the elevator at Salinger's body. The series finale begins with Jessica struggling to come to terms with what she has to do about Trish. She returns home and finds Luke Cage at her door. He tells her he's heard about her problems and then tells her that sometimes they have to make the hard decisions, especially when it comes to family, referencing a storyline from the second season of his own show. Jessica finds Trish at her loft and she questions how Trish is feeling about everything, and she seems unremorseful for her actions. She says it was horrible but necessary. Jessica urges Trish to turn herself in and she tells her that she can't stop now. Eric enters and forces Trish to touch him, and he starts to convulse and bleed from the eyes, similar to what he experienced when Salinger touched him. Trish recognizes the darkness he's feeling but still denies that it's that bad. She ducks out on Jessica through the bathroom window and runs off into the night. Jerry finally reveals to her ex-girlfriend that she has ALS and that she's dying. Trish calls Jerry and asks about the man she wanted to scare off, and she asks Jerry how bad this man is, and Jerry tells her that he's a monster. Trish goes to the man's home and begins to beat him. She makes him confess to his crimes just as his young daughter runs into the room and informs them that she's called 911. Trish runs off in a panic. News breaks of this attack on the man, and Malcolm tells Jessica that he knows someone who knows him. Jessica goes to Jerry and accuses her of sicking Trish on him. Jessica tells her she wants help in bringing Trish in, and Jerry agrees. Trish watches reporters question Jerry, and she tells him that she's going to expose the name of the masked vigilante to the public. Trish shows up at Jerry's apartment and threatens her. Jessica rushes in and tries to take her out, but Trish rushes the room and grabs Jerry's ex-girlfriend by the throat. Jerry pulls a gun on Trish and orders her to let her ex go. She tells Trish that Jessica will never stop coming for her, and that if she takes her instead, she will get her out of New York. Jerry shoots Jessica in the leg and runs off with Trish. At another building, Jerry arranges to get Trish out of the country, and a news alert comes on her phone. She watches as Jessica exposes her name to the world and urges everyone to stay clear of Trish. Jerry and Trish arrive at an airport where Jerry's paying a man off to get Trish out. He's going to smuggle her off to Thailand in a coffin. On her way out, Jerry calls Jessica and tells her where they're at, and Jessica chases after Trish through the cargo bay. Trish kicks the lights out since she can see in the dark and tries to overpower Jessica. She stabs Jessica in the hand, and Jessica smashes her to the ground, knocking her out cold. While in custody, the detective reads Trish her crimes, and it finally becomes clear to her that she is the bad guy. Jessica tells Eric that while she thinks he's a good man, she doesn't trust him, and he leaves. She locks up Alias Investigations and hands the keys to Malcolm, giving him the business. She goes to watch Trish's transport to a maximum security prison. They rush Trish onto a helicopter, and Jessica watches her leave. They're most likely taking her to the Raft, which is often mentioned in the Marvel Universe movies. In fact, I believe it was where Captain America went to break out some of the Avengers after the events of Civil War. Jessica books a one-way ticket to El Paso, but stops when she hears the voice of Kilgrave in her head, telling her that it's right of her to give in and to leave, that it's someone else's job now. Realizing that she's wrong, she turns and leaves her ticket, and we see her smile, obviously deciding to stay in New York and continue to help people. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how Season 3 of Jessica Jones ends, the final episode in the Marvel Netflix universe. Thanks for watching.